A human trafficking survivor is suing budget hotel chain Red Roof Inn for allowing trafficking to happen at their properties. Yeah, well, we brought the lawsuit, so I know a lot about it. But, you know, you've worked with me on so many big projects. Farron, talk about this case a little bit.
Yeah, what's happening here is that you have a survivor who basically was trafficked at a Red Roof Inn. She was subjected to abuse, manipulation, psychological and physical torture, basically. And they were operating very clearly, very obviously, out of the Red Roof Inn. And so what this survivor is saying, listen, you had all of the warning signs. You have all of these resources that the government has provided for you. You could have stepped in and saved me and countless other women. You made the decision to not do it because you were making money off the people coming to the hotel, not just as traffickers, but as the clients, you know, using these women.
It's actually worse than that. We have cases where an organization will call a trafficker. Maybe it's MindGeek up in Canada, one of the big centralizations of pornography. They'll call the trafficker and they say, we want to see a film of 14 and 15-year-old girls being sodomized, okay? So they go rent the room. The trafficker rents the room. They rent a suite for a week. They then bring in cameras. They bring in lights. They bring in a movie set. Everybody working the front desk. Everybody working in the hotel. Now, this is not Red Roof Inn. This is another organization that we're going after. But everybody in the hotel knows exactly what's going on. These kids are walking around, 14-year-old kids that are being sodomized up in the hotel room. They take breaks, so they walk around in negligees all around This is the kind of stuff that you can't just ignore and say, well, we don't have any standards. We don't have to worry about standards. Red Roof Inn has their own standards. They have a standard book that we must follow. The problem is they don't follow it.
Right, and not to mention, even if they somehow don't miss all the camera equipment coming into the hotel. I mean, look, I've traveled with camera equipment and lights. Those are big, giant containers you have to wheel through, move around people.
Yeah.
And I'll say, nobody's ever looked at us twice. I mean, not that we're doing anything bad, but they don't care. They just pretend it doesn't exist. But they also had complaints on their own message boards of people who had just stayed in the hotel telling them, listen, you have lots of pimps hanging outside this hotel. I'm here with my family on vacation, and we can't walk through the lobby without all of the pimps offering us, do you want a woman for tonight?
Yeah.
That's on their own message board, the people making complaints about staying in the hotel. So they had all of the evidence, knowing that this was happening.
Yeah, it's always knowledge. It's like the trucking case where they load up kids in California in an 18-wheeler. They have little separate bedrooms in an 18-wheeler. They go across the country calling truck stops all along the way. We'll be there in a half an hour. People come in, have sex with these children, and leave. The truck stop, they're making money on the fuel. They're making money on the food. They're making money on the business that comes in from that, so they look the other way. This is a similar kind of case in a lot of ways. A new report's found that eating a single freshwater fish is the same as drinking dangerous PFAS chemicals. Okay, first of all, most people don't know what PFAS is. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
It's been knocking around out there. We tried the first time PFAS ever got into the public domain were the trials that I had up in West Virginia. They made 2 movies out of it. One was called The Devil We Know. It's on Netflix. The other one was about the lawyer who brought the case to me, brilliant lawyer, named Rob Bilott. It's called Dark Waters. Begin by watching those movies to understand how bad this is. Okay. PFAS is so dangerous that if you take one drop, put it in an Olympic-sized pool, it's going to have the propensity to cause the physical problems that we're talking about, which are what?
We're talking about neurological problems, cancers of every imaginable kind for the individuals, birth defects. And the big problem here too, and you've discussed this plenty of times, is that it's bioaccumulative, which means once it gets in you, it's in you. So every PFAS chemical you drink after that is just compiling and building up inside your system.
And explain why it's in fish. Explain why it's in our drinking water. Talk about
exactly.
that.
It's the waste from these massive corporations that have been dumping it for decades Our EPA right now still doesn't know exactly if we're going to stop this because it's still happening. They're still debating on what the proper limits are, but there's no limit.
50 years. 50 years. The EPA has known that PFAS, the first cases we tried was C8. It was a type of PFAS. So we found the documents. The EPA understood that all of the rat studies were a disaster. All of the beagle studies, they all died. All the monkey studies, they all died. And it was caused by this stuff that is in our drinking water right now. The second phase of this case that we're handling right now is all these drinking water facilities, the delivery facilities. They have so much PFAS in the water, it would take $100 to $200 million per facility to get it out of the water.
And so now what we're looking at, this new study from the Environmental Working Group says one freshwater fish, just one, if you were to eat that right now for lunch, that's the equivalent of drinking nothing but PFAS basically for an entire month, one fish. And these freshwater fish they're talking about, these supply foods to communities. They're a huge source of food for low-income Americans who always bear the brunt of all of these environmental toxins, native populations. All of these groups heavily dependent on these fish, and we're finding out now we're poisoning you even faster than the rest of us are being poisoned because everybody's getting it, but they're getting it worse.
You want to know how it happened? You know what came out in the trial? Okay, it's 3M and DuPont were the big folks in this. They did all this testing. They saw that all the tests were a disaster, causing kidney cancer, causing testicular cancer, causing neurological problems, causing birth defects, all of this information they had. Now, for a little while, they hid it from the EPA, but then at some point, they handed it over to the EPA. EPA did nothing. There was nothing that was done by the EPA. All right. Working groups, environmental working groups, gave it to the media. Don't you think this was 40 years ago? Don't you think this is an important story, New York Times? Don't you think this is important,
It should be.
Washington Post? No, it wasn't, because obviously advertising money was moving into those entities. Television wouldn't do it. 3M, check your TVs. 3M advertises like crazy people. So even the so-called investigative corporate types weren't doing anything on this project. Then regulators, we found out that the regulators that were supposed to be in charge of all this were moving from being regulators to going to work for 3M in million-dollar jobs, or DuPont going to work, going from regulation to DuPont. It was this revolving door, and it went the other way. People who worked for the industry they were putting people in administrative positions with the EPA to slow it all down. And Farron, I swear to God, if you say, isn't that PFAS a problem to 10 people? If you get one of them to even understand it's in their body, it's in their drinking water, they don't get it.
No, it's what is it? At least 98% of all life on Earth at this point
Yes.
has PFAS chemicals in
Polar
it.
bears have it. It's so bad that they had to find blood that they could do epidemiology studies with. They couldn't find it with contemporaries. They had to go to the soldiers that were in Korea to look at their blood samples to even be able to compare, because they didn't have it in their blood because it hadn't started then.